Dead Pixel Society podcast listeners, registration is now open for Photo Imaging Connect, March 16th and 17th at the Rio in Las Vegas. In a special partnership with WPPI, the Photo Imaging Connect is the executive-level conference, bringing together the photo imaging industry to discuss trends, opportunities, new technologies, and more in an intimate setting. Go now to photoimagingconnect.com today to register and use code PIC30 for 30% off. Welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast, the photo imaging industry's leading news source. Here's your host, Gary Peugeot. The Dead Pixel Society podcast is brought to you by Mediaclip, Advertech Printing, and Independent Photo Imagers.
Hello again and welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. I'm your host, Gary Peugeot, and today we're joined by Matt Bailey, who's a digital marketer with a company called SiteLogic, and he's from Canton, Ohio. And we've just been giggling for the last 20 minutes, just sharing stories about marketing, small business, and what the real world is like out there. Hi, Matt. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great, Gary. Thanks for having me on.
I hope we haven't covered too much in the preamble, because there's actually a lot I want to ask you about.
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot more we could get to.
So tell me about Matt Bailey and how he got into digital marketing.
Well, I don't want to go too long. I'll just say about mid-90s, I was in the real estate business, and, I was a kid, Gary, and I started building
12, 13 years old.
Yeah, 13 years old. I started building websites because we had some commercial properties, like bed and breakfasts, inns, and things like that. So I started building websites to get more exposure for that, because at that point, you either had the newspaper, the local LMS, you could take a full page color ad in Southern Living for 40 grand. So I figured, let's try this out. And within months of getting those websites up, we were getting leads, massive amounts of leads from, at that time, it was Yahoo, Alta Vista, when Google started coming in. And so the vast majority of leads we were getting on these properties were coming from the internet. Mm-hmm. And so it didn't take too long for me to realize that this internet thing was going to be a whole lot more fun than real estate, especially before 2000. So from there, all I had to do was show up at an agency and say, I know SEO. And I could get hired almost anywhere, because that's what people were starting to ask for. Mm-hmm. So that's what launched me into the career. I've been in the agency world for years, then started my own agency. And then because I've just got a passion for teaching and teaching others. And so I worked with a lot of organizations in teaching their memberships how to do marketing. Eventually, I sold off the client services, went full on into the training side. And that's what I've been doing for the past 10 years.
Mm-hmm. So in the 90s, where were you getting the resources to learn things? Because there weren't YouTube tutorials, there weren't Matt Baileys out there. So what was that like? Was this a lot of trial and error, or what how did you learn?
So back then, and you may remember this, Gary, there were forums. Forums where
CompuServe.
Yeah, CompuServe, but then just text-based forums where people would share information. Right. And I loved it because, here's the difference. We've got things like, X and all these words, very short. But forums, people would write paragraphs. Right. Of what I've learned, what I saw, and then there would be debate. And that was a great way of learning. But also, I would say a lot of it was just trial and error.
Yeah.
What works, what doesn't work. And I remember I picked up a book. Oh, I can't remember when it was, but it was called
SEO then, really, was it?
No, it was at the beginning stages.
Yeah.
But I picked up a book called Websites That Don't Suck.
I think I have that somewhere.
Yeah. And it was great because that's what taught me about user experience and the interface, and learning that it's not only just getting people to the site, it's making it easier for them to use. And so that's what formed a lot of my decision making and growth, because when I had my agency, where we created value for people, yes, we could increase the amount of traffic coming to their site. Where we really hit it out of the park was improving the site so that the people who were coming could more easily find what they needed.
Right.
And so looking and finding where those roadblocks were and taking them out, there's a couple of sites, we doubled their sales overnight because we found where the roadblocks were and fixed them.
What was the biggest misconception that you had going in the 90s you learned, or you that surprised you, I guess?
Misconception. I don't know. I feel like everything was a conception at that point. It was just.
Well, it was kind of the reason why I remember that. It was kind of the Wild West back then, right?
Well, my wife would always say, it is ignorance and enthusiasm.
Right.
This is why you love it. Is there's no rules. There's just, that didn't work. Let's try this. Right. And I think that excitement is really what carried it and made it what it was. Is you never know what you were going to see that day. You never,
Right.
You just sit down and go to it. But I will say one of the things, another forming instance is when I sat down and tried to figure out, I've got 2 hours to work tonight on this.
Right.
Where am I going to spend that time?
Right.
Do I spend it, adding more properties? Do I spend it doing follow-up? Do I spend it doing these types of things? And that question drove me to learn analytics and measurement. And learning what's really driving business. And I learned from that point on, more leads and more visits don't necessarily mean more business.
Right.
And that was probably the biggest, I won't say it's a misconception. It was more, it's an assumption.
Right. Yeah.
And because I would have clients constantly saying, I want more visits. And I would have to ask them, do you want more visits? Or do you want more business?
Right.
Because they're not the same. So learning that is really what then propelled our business, my ability to communicate to businesses. Here's how to set goals. Here's how to build strategy. Here's how to measure success.
Now, I'm just curious because you worked with businesses of different sizes, and I'm thinking back in those early days, you probably ran into a bit of conflict in the organization because you have your marketing contact, right? The person who's hired you to do this, and they're like, we want visits. We want to see those numbers.
Yes.
We don't care how we get it. And then, but it's like, but we're not making sales. Well, sales is somebody else. That's somebody else's concern, right? My concern is, how did you manage that sort of thing? Because I remember back then, that was a lot of the conflict back then.
Yeah, well, and there was a lot of conflict, not just with sales, not just with copywriters, but also with graphic artists.
Right.
Because they wanted to build the site like this. And I'm coming in saying, oh, no, we need much more contrast. That can't be a graphic. It needs to be HTML. So I think personally, I had more conflict with graphic artists because I came from a sales background.
Right.
And so I could speak the sales language and show them. And here's where probably the biggest thing is I had to persuade them, the more content you put on the site, the easier the sale will be.
Right.
Because their idea was, well, we need to keep information back. We just need to get them to call us. And I was trying to convince them that they won't call if they don't have confidence or if you don't spur that question. And so that was the main conflict, is how much information do we give to get a call, to get an email. Right. That was a lot of fun. But again, coming from a sales background, that enabled me to work with them a little bit more and sell the idea. And finally, and then when they saw it happening, that was a great time.
So moving forward, right? So you get into your own agency, doing your own thing. What changed? The reason why I say this is because I run into people now. They're still asking those same questions, right? I think you've hit on a universal problem that even though the foundational technology has changed, and maybe some of the attitudes regarding change. I mean, you were talking about enthusiasm. I think a lot of marketing today is more desperation and cynicism than it is. Enthusiasm, right?
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, is there anything new really happening in the objectives, I guess,
Yeah. It hasn't changed much. I will say that the window dressing changes every week.
Right.
But it's still the same window. It's still put information out there that people are looking for.
Right.
That is the basic thing that has not changed. And put it out there in a way that people can find it, that they can use it,
Mhm.
and that also connects with them at some level, whether it's giving them confidence that you can do it, building curiosity that maybe these guys can help me. It's that same basic idea has always been the same. It's just a matter of how you're going to execute it, how you're going to build or develop it. But I will say right now, the problem is there's so many shiny objects, and we get a
Exactly.
new one, and we were talking a little bit earlier, and I realized this was next to me, and this is the course I'm teaching at my university. Look at how thick that book is
Right.
of Principles of Marketing. Here's the thing. This was published only like 2 years ago, and they're talking about how the metaverse is the next biggest thing. Um,
Right.
so and I'm laughing. I'm like, I'm going to make this the centerpiece of my course because there's so many shiny objects. If you don't know what works, why it works,
Right.
and how to affect that, then you're
Mhm.
going to get caught up in the shiny objects.
Yeah, it's funny. We were talking again earlier about the course I teach in the prison system, which some listeners know about. I teach a course on entrepreneurship, and I run into the same thing with my book because I think it was published in 2016 or something, and it talks about like this is a search engine, and this is how it works, and it
Right.
just.
Yep.
But again, the principles are the same. That's why it's
Yeah.
still a valid thing. But it is.
Hmm.
So when you talk about finding out what people are looking for, the challenge a lot of my listeners run into is they make stuff and they want to sell the things that they make, but sometimes that's not the stuff that customers are looking for.
Hmm. Hmm.
So how should they deal with that, right? Let's say for example they just bought a new press and they really
Yeah.
want to feed that press, but the customer may not even be aware of what it can do or see the advantage of it.
Yeah. Well, so that gets to your marketing strategy and how you're positioning yourself.
Mhm.
So, for example, Starbucks, Red Bull, Coke, they sell caffeine drinks.
Mhm.
That's it.
Right.
However, what do they market themselves at?
Mhm.
What do they say they do? And there's a big difference. There's that functional thing of what we do,
Mhm.
and then there is what I would say is more of the marketing view of what we do. Are
Right.
you selling pictures or memories?
Right.
One has an emotional draw to it, the other one does not.
Right.
It's more functional. And so it's coming up with that bridge of functionally, this is what I do, but this is how I change people's lives.
Right.
This is how I make an impact. And it's that statement and that idea that all of a sudden broadens out your audience and what they're looking for. That I'm not just looking for a picture. I'm looking for a way to, immortalize a moment
Right.
and always have that on hand to see and remember. It's memories, it's
Mhm.
emotion, and that's what it's thinking about the satisfaction that you're bringing someone once they have it, once
Mhm.
they've done it. And when you think about that end result, that's what you're selling.
Mhm.
And so that's that connection, because so many times people get locked into that functional mode,
Right.
and it's just how far does this go?
Yeah, and that's part of the challenge in the marketing in the photo industry, right? Where we're
Hmm.
recording this full disclosure during the fourth quarter of 2024. So there's a lot of discounting and buy one get ones and 20% off, 30% off deals that are going on because there's a lot of that urgency, and that's not that message. And the
Hmm.
problem you run into, I think, especially in my industry, is once you've gone down that path, it's hard to switch to a value message.
Yeah. So I did a lot of work with the direct marketing industry around, the 2000s into the 2010s. And it was always fun to talk to people who were catalog retailers that had these type of businesses. And I remember talking to one person specifically who said, I will never offer a discount
Right.
unless it's to an existing customer, because they've shown their loyalty. They've shown. Now, here's why that's changed is Amazon.
Right.
Amazon has made everyone believe that shipping is free and it's immediate. And one of the great pieces of advice I got is if you see something you like on Amazon, go to the retailer, go to the person that sells it, and chances are they'll offer you 10%, which takes care of the shipping.
Right.
Uh, it's now we've been conditioned for that. But you can also feed that beast. You offer a discount, and I'm guilty of this. If you offer me a discount, I'm going to wait for the next discount. I've got something sitting in a shopping cart right now
Right.
because I'm waiting for the abandoned cart discount.
Right.
I'm waiting for a sale. So it's you are training people with discounts when you keep offering them.
Mhm.
So and that's the thing. Do you offer it to get a new customer? Do you offer it as a reward
Mhm.
for customers and so that's a lot when we can get into the business side of things is do you reward customers and at what level do you reward customers
Right.
and how do you work with customers then, not just
Mhm.
order from us when you feel like it. How are you communicating to the people that spent $1,000 with you this past year? How are you communicating to people that spent 5,000 with you the past year?
Right.
We when we talk about marketing, I think like 80-90% of what people think about is top of funnel, is
Right.
getting new customers. And we tend to forget to take care of those that are already on our mailing list, past buyers
Right.
of the past year, those type of things.
And you've reached an interesting point because I think, discount is easy, right? It's just
Yeah.
easy to do. But the reality is at least in the photographic industry, whether you're in the hardware side or the output side or the capture side, you're trying to build a relationship for ongoing business, right? Because you are
Mhm.
dealing with people's personal image or their personal memories, or they're trying to decorate their home and have it be their taste and all those things. That's really an advantage that the industry has over, let's say, I'm just selling towels or something like that.
Yes.
So, do you have any guidelines on like how often a business like that should be communicating with customers?
Mm.
Because you kind of don't want to give them too much information all the time just because it's annoying,
Yeah.
especially this
Yeah.
time of the year, versus just you want to remind people that you exist, right? And you
Right.
can't always rely on social media for that because that's kind of outside of your ability to control the algorithm.
It is, and you're only and with social media, you're only going to reach 2% maybe
Mhm.
of the people that follow you. And I think also, we could go into an assumption that people follow brands.
Right,
They don't normally do that. However, they do get emails, and especially this time of year, email is powerful.
Mhm.
Email drives more sales than social. It always has because it's that one-on-one. And now I will say measuring emails getting harder.
Right,
We don't know how many people opened. I mean, it was always a fuzzy metric to begin with.
right,
However, we can look at clicks. Clicks are something that are hard. I can go by that. And so looking at who opens your email, who clicks on your email, seeing if I've sent 4 emails in the past 3 months, who's clicked on them?
right.
Those are the people who are actively looking and reading and seeing what's there. I can segment those and communicate to them differently than to people who maybe have only clicked on an email once in the past year.
Right.
And so a lot of it is just, we do the same thing in face to face. We communicate with people differently based on our level of relationship.
Right.
We need to do the same thing in our marketing, our emails, and things like that.
When you're talking with people who are, similar businesses, right? Like consumer goods businesses, like,
Mhm.
and you talk about chasing the shiny, which it was a phrase I like to use a lot too, because
Yep.
I do see a lot of people guilty about it. What are some of the things people should look at before they decide to try something shiny and new, right? Because, like I said, I've had photo retailers going, I've already got the Facebook, I've already got the Instagram, I've already got the LinkedIn for my corporate accounts. Do I
Yep.
need TikTok, right?
Yeah.
No one needs TikTok.
Yeah, yeah. My first question is where's the money coming from?
Right, right,
Where are you going to pull this budget?
right,
Because are you going to add to the budget for that or are you going to pull? One story I tell people constantly, I worked with a consumer goods retailer and they got sold on social commerce. This was a couple of years ago through Instagram. a company sold them, and we were working on their website as well as their marketing. And I cautioned about doing, and this was like probably late summer, early fall.
Sure.
Again, Christmas is their biggest sales time.
Sure.
And they pulled money out of their paid search budget. They pulled money out of their email budget. And I'm trying to tell them, you shouldn't do this. Then they came back, they lost everything. Everything that they put into the social commerce did not produce anything. And not only that, it damaged their business.
Right.
And it took them years to recover. And they asked me why. Well, I told them, like, every dollar you put into paid search, you were making at least $5 in return.
Right.
So not only did you miss that $5 RO, return on ad spend, every dollar you took out of that ad spend, it hurt you even more.
Right.
I said, your two best channels were paid search and email, and you pulled budget out of both in order to try something new.
Right.
And so, that's why I tell people, know what works and why. And it because if you don't know, you could be pulling budget from an area that is working great. But if you don't know, and again, just throwing money at a channel does not necessarily mean it's going to work.
Right.
This gets to just our typical talk, Gary. How are you going to use it? Did you think about that? Because if you use TikTok, well, who's going to shoot the video? Who's going to edit it? What's going to be your schedule? How are you going to talk about it?
Right.
And one of the things I don't think people realize is every single one of these social channels, it's a game.
Right.
If you're going to be successful at a channel, you have to have a game. And by that, I mean, you can't look at other people's numbers and compare, because you don't know how they got those.
Especially in social, there's a lot of sketch in social.
Yeah, and when you start digging in and reading how to create audience, how to create things like that, very little of it is organic.
Right.
There is a lot of pay. Back in the day, we used to call it the payola.
Yeah.
If you're paying DJs to play your music.
Yeah, exactly.
Essentially, that's what's going on in social media.
Right.
You're paying companies to boost. You're paying companies to follow. So many of these metrics are inflated or overdone. We see things go viral and we assume it's organic. It is 99.999% of the time, it's not organic. It was done by an agency, and they had the means to make it happen.
But let's not be on the negative side and say you shouldn't try new things. No, I'm just saying there are things that you want to try, but the reality is don't kill the golden goose to do it. Maybe try it, but don't pull out of your budget, add to your budget, do something different. That's what I guess, and have a way to measure
it. Absolutely. And that's the thing. I tell people, you can try a new channel, but ultimately, here my first bit of advice is find one channel and do great. Don't do 3 channels midway.
Right.
Do one thing great. And when you've mastered it, now figure out, well, which channel should we look at from here? What's next?
Right.
And you might be surprised when you start looking to see where these communities are of people that not only would like your product, but are going to tell others about it. That'll take pictures of what they got and send it and show it to other people.
Right.
It's not just a matter of which platform's the biggest. It's where the people are that will be the most appreciative and the most engaging. And that's part of it. The new is not always the best. It's finding where those communities are.
If you're a local business, and you've got a 3 to 5 mile trading area, right? Like most people, for your brick and mortar. How do you find where the people are, right? I'm talking your regular everyday business owner who's not a marketing expert, who, is just dealing with the day to day. How does that person find the people?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Are you ready for 2025? If you're in the imaging industry, you need to be at Photo Imaging Connect, March 16th and 17th at the Rio in Las Vegas. This is an executive level event bringing together various sectors of the photo imaging industry to discuss trends, opportunities, new technologies, and more. Meet old friends and make new ones. Go now to photoimagingconnect.com today to register and use code PIC30 for 30% off.
The best thing that you can do is build that Google My Business profile. That is number one for a locally based business. You are going to get more mileage out of that than you will building a website and putting all kinds of things trying to get a bigger audience. Your Google business profile is going to be first what Google shows people. Connect it to your website. There's a number of things you can do and engage with it. Update it. Google My Business is one of those things. The more effort you put into it, the more you're going to see. I work with a couple of local businesses. I've developed their business profile. And by the way, anyone that wants to charge you to do it, come on, you can do this. You can do it in a weekend.
Right.
Or, don't pay someone else to do this. But then also log into it once a week. Double check your hours. Double check the things that you've got there. And if you can, upload pictures. That is what's going to move things. And as people start leaving reviews about your business, and by the way, you can grab a link and you can send it to customers with an invitation for them to leave a review about your business.
Right.
So the more active you are in the profile, the more pictures you load and the more ratings you get, the more exposure your local listing will get in Google compared to your website.
Right.
And then over time, the words that people search for will become broader and your local listing will come up more frequently. At first, it'll come up for your business name. But as you grow that reputation, it's going to broaden out into more terms that Google's going to associate. And if you're active, you are building that profile, you're going to get that visibility.
So, I mean, and like you said, it's something you can do in your spare time, because one of your resources is a book called Marketing in 1 Hour, right? So you think most people can do this without investing a crazy amount of time? Because that's what I always hear from a lot of my audiences. I'd love to do this stuff, but I just don't have time.
Yeah.
But you're saying you do have time, but you got to have the discipline to do it. Know what to do.
The business profile is the easiest thing to do. I work with a lot of, small businesses. And I tell them the easiest thing you can do is take a picture of what you do. Take a picture of the before and after. Put that in. I know people don't have time to sit around and write 2,000 word pages up for a blog. And that's the thing. People, when they hear content, that's what they think of. But no, take a short video. I work with a plumber. I tell them, just take a short video of some of the worst things that you see in a day and explain why it's so bad. Put that on your business profile, put it on your website. That's the type of thing people want to see.
Really? Okay. I'm surprised you would say that for your business profile, because usually when I think of the business profile, I think of like the store, the back room, the trucks, the retail area.
Oh, no.
So you're even talking about like things out in the field.
Gary, do you remember the show Dirty Jobs?
Absolutely.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
People are fascinated to see.
But that's okay for a Google profile. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well,
okay. All right.
Think about, and here's the thing, think about the problems people run into.
Right.
With a plumber, we don't call plumbers 3 months before we need them.
Right.
That's,
right.
Same, with an electrician, it might be a little different, but it's think about the things a homeowner might run into where all of a sudden they realize I'm in over my head. Maybe they go online and they're looking, and if they see on your profile, oh, this guy's seen this before. He's explaining why it's so bad or why I need what I need to do. Maybe they'll learn, maybe they'll call. It's that behind the scenes that's why I use the Dirty Jobs example. People are fascinated with what people do.
Sure.
And they'll sit and watch.
Absolutely. Oh, I agree. I just have not heard of someone using the Google profile for that. I mean, I hear people do YouTube for that, but
oh yeah,
but YouTube's a different.
Do both.
Okay,
Yeah.
doing both. Okay, it doesn't hurt you to do
Yeah.
both.
Doing
Well,
both.
Google owns YouTube, so they love that too,
Yeah,
I'm sure.
exactly. Yeah.
When it comes to marketing, let's recap a little bit. Avoid the shiny, have discipline. You can do this. Don't kill the golden goose. What is something else that you would share with somebody about that you tell the big companies you work with? I mean, what I find surprising, I'm sure, is big companies have these same problems as little companies. It's
Oh,
almost it's just on a different scale.
oh, it's on a completely different scale. Things go slower. There are things you cannot change because you're not in charge of that.
Right.
Somebody else is. It's absolutely frustrating to work with a larger company who won't move or move quickly. There is an advantage to being the one who calls the shots.
Right.
In that
Exactly.
you can move very quickly. Large companies, I find, my own experience, I spend more time presenting why we need to take action
Right.
than actually taking action.
Right.
You need to get more people signed off. You need to justify it. And I will say from my, it can be fun, but it can be frustrating as well.
Right.
And so, yeah, I've got friends and clients, in all different areas. And it's just, they all have their nuance to it. The people that I train in agencies, I train them differently than the people that are in large companies with, a 20-person marketing department or a 100-person marketing department. The expectations are different. The objectives are different.
Right.
Measurements are different. And when you've got politics thrown in, that's just icing on the cake.
So one of the things that I hear from people is I need new customers. I need new people. I need new people. But from what I was understanding you're saying before, you're saying double down on your existing people, your current customers. Can you tell me how that results in new customers? Because I think I know what you're going to say, but it does actually bring you new customers by focusing on your current customer base.
Yeah. Well, it starts with asking, who's my best customer?
Right.
And now, what I love about that question is it can be interpreted in a couple of different ways. Is it financially? Who's my best customer?
Right.
Is it socially? Who's my, I've got a lot of businesses I'll work with, and yeah, these people spend a lot of money, but these people, they are actively posting, recommending, or I love working with these people.
Right.
They may not spend a lot, but I love working with them. So how do you interpret that? I ask any businesses, what's your goal? Is your goal to find more people that you have fun working with? Or is your goal to find more people who spend more? How are you going to define that question?
Right.
Because that's going to determine, now, let's go look at the data.
Right.
Let's go see who these people are that you define as your best customers. Now, let's develop a campaign that rewards, that promotes, that helps them tell others about you. That's ultimately what we're going to do. And that, and that's where the swag comes in. I'm wearing swag here this morning. I don't know if you can see, it's an analytics company. They saw that I was talking about them. They sent me a sweatshirt. So I talk about them even more. That's how it works.
Yeah.
And we're working with a company right now, and we look to see how many people were talking about their product online. And we were surprised that not only did they talk about the product, they talk about how much they love it. And so, our biggest piece of advice is you need to put together a box of swag and get that out to them. Get it out to their teams, get it out to them, reward them for what they're doing for you. There was one client, that was our best promotion. That was our best campaign, was rewarding the people that we're actively talking about. It produced more than, any of the social media stuff we did, because it was them doing it. Again, what kind of customer do you want? Find them and reward them. And come up with a way to engage them even more. Back in the day, Gary, you probably did this as well. We had user groups,
Right.
where you get that direct one-on-one feedback. It's also where we got ideas for new products.
Sure.
I think in this electronic age, we do a lot more assuming and less communicating.
Speaking of communication, how can people get more information about Matt Bailey's Site Logic and the things that you offer in terms of training and resources.
Thank you, Gary. I appreciate the opportunity for an ad. They can go to SiteLogic, and that is SITE, SiteLogicMarketing.com, or even just SiteLogic.com. I've got courses on digital marketing. In fact, we talked about the local marketing, and I've got a course on Google My Business. It is free, and that's my hook. You can also take courses on SEO, on content marketing, how to find customers, how to build customer insights. And all of my courses, my paid courses, are coached courses. They are active learning, so you're going to get assignments. And this assignment can be about your own business.
Right.
And so you will build strategy for your own business. You will build campaigns, and I'm going to be with you every step of the way, looking at your assignments, giving you feedback, and building your own skills for your business.
Awesome. Well, great, Matt. It's been great getting to know you and learning more about your business and your offerings and the education you offer, because it sounds cool and I'm going to check it out. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Gary. It's been a lot of fun being here. I appreciate it. And yeah, it's been a great conversation.
Thank you for listening to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. Read more great stories and sign up for the newsletter at www.thedeadpixelssociety.com. Photo Imaging Connect, March 16th and 17th at the Rio in Las Vegas, is coming up fast. Registration closes March 7th. Learn about the latest industry trends, opportunities, and more in an intimate setting. Go now to photoimagingconnect.com today to register and use code PIC30 for 30% off.